Okay, is it now working? There I am. Welcome in. Hello. Let me close some of these things that are not. I don't know what some of these audio applications are on here. I'm not using you, so you can go away. Delete. Let's see. What are you for? You can go away. Delete. Yes. Okay, there we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome in, Crusader. Welcome in, Kintran. Welcome in. Congrats on getting first. Waste. Hello. I can't see who got first or anything. It doesn't. My chat had disappeared and I had to reset it, so it's being all weird. And I'm in a very I'm here, but am I really? Because my head is very foggy. It's weird right now. And I think it's because the weather that's coming in. I found out it's streaming through the classroom. Yay, thank you, Wastes, for the 10 stream streak. Holy cow. So yes, we're gonna continue reading Romance of Fanland. Romances of Fanland. I think hopefully my goal is to finish it today. Hopefully that'll be it. He got, okay. Hopefully we will finish that today, but again, it depends on my head. So I was thinking about, streaming Love and Deep Space on stream, starting getting a different account and doing it on here. But it has to be done through the Google Play Store. I don't have a computer that supports it, so I'd have to download an emulator. I tried doing that. The emulator wants me to do XYZ, and I'm like, that's too much trouble to be worth it. So if anything, I'll watch the videos in Discord for anyone who wants to also watch them and hear me freak out. Because the game is very freak outable, freak out worthy. But yeah, so let's get to it. Let's start reading Romances of Fanland. Now, to catch up, let's see, last time we read, we found out that this is literally told to it's fans that are talking, like legit fans. And the first story was, let me open this up. The Spanish fan. We read about the feather fan, who's clearly a burlesque fan, and the lace fan. We read that one. And the lace fan was the one where the girl was an orphan. The nuns took her in. She learned how to make lace. She made the fan, but it was never made into a fan. She just made the lace for it, and then they got robbed, and all this crazy stuff happened. And later on, when she was taken, the fan was taken to New York City, or taken to where this fan show was going to be. The adopted mother of the woman who made the lace piece found the fan, realized what it was, and bought it. So they've been reunited. And now we are on the painted fan, which is chapter 5, page 82. Here we go. Story of the painted fan. Let me pull the seat back on here. There we go. So I'm not shrimping along. I must begin at the beginning with myself and tell you how I came to be I. I shall have to take you to a very noisy place, a large silk factory in Lyons, France. Oh, exclaimed the lace fan, you too are French. How interesting. Where I, and my sisters and cousins and aunts, for we are a very large, very big family, were all lying in a large box in a still larger safe, locked up for ever so long, and where it was cold, dark, and quite dreary. When at last we heard the key turn in the lock, there was much excitement. We all gave a sigh of relief, for once more we were to see daylight and have a breath of fresh air. On the outside of her box was marked "Selected Cocoons." When the lid was lifted, I heard the foreman of the factory say to the director, who held an open letter in his hand, "Yes, sir, these are the finest cocoons we have." "Then," said the director, "you must use these, for I have an order for 20 yards of the finest white satin that our looms can produce. The order is from Worth, the great dressmaker in Paris. It must be made immediately, as it is for a bridal dress, so put your best workmen on it." At this we all gave a chuckle of delight to think we would be kept together for a bride's dress, and I'll say right here that it took the entire family to make the gown. The whole factory became interested in this piece of satin, as the texture and color were to be, if possible, something never achieved before. One Friday, when it was nearly woven, all but a little piece at the end, the workmen, thinking it might bring the bride bad luck to finish it on that day, stopped their looms until the morrow. What was their surprise when they uncovered the satin the following morning to find a large brown spot nearly a yard from the end. How it got there, no one could tell. It looked like machine oil, and the director was very angry, but the workmen declared they had taken every precaution. Thus the blame could be attached to no one. The spot created quite a talk in the factory. The girls had their heads together, asking in whispers if it could be a bad omen for the bride. But you will see, my dear friends, that like dreams, omens sometimes go by contraries, and you will see how this same spot brought happiness to the bride, and how I was benefited by it. "How is that? Oh, do hurry along," cried some of the fans. "Please come to the bride part," said some dainty white bridal fans in the opposite corner. "That is the part we like best." Well, now I must carry you into Worth's workroom, where the satin was being unfolded to the admiring gaze of Worth, his son, and the head woman. "What a color!" said one. "How it stands alone, and withal so soft. It will be so becoming. Is the bride young and pretty?" This was asked of Worth senior. "Very beautiful, I hear." Then he told them that her name was Mademoiselle Gabrielle de Saint-Rohan, that she belonged to a very aristocratic family, who had lost all their money, and that her father had died leaving nothing but a fine chateau heavily mortgaged. An old friend of the family, the Duc de Rochelle, a man much respected, very wealthy, and a great art connoisseur, seeing his friends getting poorer every day, had offered himself to the young girl and was accepted. This story made me feel quite sad, and I was very anxious to see this girl who was going to sacrifice her young life to save her family from ruin. In a few days I was gratified, for she came for her first fitting. She was most lovely, with a sweet, sad face, a droop in the corners of a perfect mouth, and a plaintive look in her large blue eyes. She seemed to take no interest in her dress, but roused herself once to speak to a little girl who had come in with some pins, and had been told to fold up the satin and put it away. The child stood quite still, gazing in silent admiration. She had never seen anyone so beautiful. Mademoiselle de Saint-Rohan noticed this look, and patting the child on the head, she said, "Why do you look at me like that? Hello, Matsu, welcome in." No, we are not reading Sweet Potatoes. Mr. Sweet Potatoes, no, we are not. We are reading Romances of Fanland. The child blushed and was too frightened to speak, but Mr. Worth said, Answer the young lady." So she said, "Because you are so pretty, and I thought I had seen your face before, mademoiselle, but I think it must be the Madonna's face in the picture at the cathedral. I ask your pardon." At this, Gabrielle's face was lighted with a smile that gave it a radiance it had seemed to lack before. "What is your name, my child?" "Julie," she replied. "Well, Julie, I shall ask Mr. Worth to let you always come in with the pins every time I am fitted. Would you like that?" How sweet of her, I thought, to think of giving that pleasure to a poor little girl. Well, she had a heart, if the world was saying she was selling herself. Now, to make my story more interesting, I must tell you Julie's story, as she afterward told it to Mademoiselle de Saint-Rohan, holding me lovingly in her hands with the tears falling fast, and I all the time expecting them to drop upon me and spoil me. For by this time I appreciated the fact that I was beautifully painted, and I was nervous lest she should spoil her own work. Well, this was her story. She was the daughter of a painter who, like Mignonette, the French artist of great fame, was not fully appreciated during his lifetime. He was a poor Breton peasant, and in his youth had learned to love nature, and God had given him the great gift of genius to paint this beautiful world as he had made it. After many struggles to earn a livelihood, he moved his family to Paris, bringing his paintings with him. They lived in a garret, the only advantage of which was being near the blue sky. Here he worked very hard, but unfortunately fell into the hands of an unscrupulous picture dealer who cheated him by giving him only a quarter of what his pictures were worth, selling them at a great profit to himself. The poor artist, having become crippled with rheumatism, his second winter in Paris, could not get out to associate with other artists, so the old picture dealer had him at his mercy. Julie, who used to watch her father paint by the hour, began to appreciate the beauty of his work, because she had inherited his genius. Many times she cried herself to sleep after the wicked ogre, as she called the dealer, had taken a picture away. Then came a bitter time. Her father grew too ill to work. They were obliged to take him to a hospital, where he died. This happened, of course, several years before my story began. Julie then told how the old dealer again came and offered to buy other pictures, but she, with eyes flaming, declared he should not have another one, that her father had made her promise this on his deathbed, and moreover he had left them all to her. "Oh-ho," he replied, "so the little garret rat is proud. Please tell me how you are to live, little Miss Skin and Bones. And your mother over there, who is so ill, where will you get money to buy her medicines and food?" At this Julie's heart failed her, but she kept back the tears and said she thought the dear Lord would provide for them. The dealer left in a rage, saying as he went, "You will soon come to terms when you are starving." Julie lay awake all night planning what she could do to earn some money. She began tramping the street next day, and soon found herself near the flower market around the Madeleine, which always attracted her in the early spring, so great was her love of brilliant colors. She stood a long time in front of a stall where the flowers seemed most beautiful. Such roses! She was thinking how much she would like to take one home to her mother, when the old woman who kept the stall asked her if she would like a rose. "Oh, yes, madam, if you please, to take home to my sick mother." Madame Bonneval became interested at once, asked Julie some questions, found out that she wanted to work, and told her to come around every morning after she had given her mother her breakfast, and she would let her run her errands. Thus Julie found a way to earn a little money. This went on for several months, and when one day on returning home she found her mother on the floor unconscious. It happened that during her absence the old dealer had been there and had asked her to part with a picture. When she refused, he threatened to tell the landlord to increase the rent, because she owned such valuable paintings. So the poor, weak creature had let him have one for 25 francs, a pretty little landscape of the Breton scenery. Julie was heartbroken over the loss of another picture, and her mother was ill for several days from fright. When she was able to see her friend, Madame Bonneval, Julie confided their whole story to her, and the good old soul promised to see if her niece could not get Julie in Worth's establishment where she was working. It happened that there was a vacancy that Julie could fill. She was interviewed and engaged to come the next day. After she had been there a month, my acquaintance with her began. At this there was a flutter of interest among the fans. And now I will break off here from what she had been telling Gabrielle, and will come to the story from my point of view, said the fan, for she and I were hardly ever separated after that. I heard Julie one day telling the forewoman about her father's beautiful paintings. And hello, Cringy Wes. Welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. I heard Julie one day telling the forewoman about her father's beautiful paintings, and how she too hoped to paint. "Have you any of his talent, child?" "A little, I think," she modestly replied. "I used always to sit beside him when he worked, and I have been able to draw since I was 5 years old. I have always felt as though I could paint, but I have not had time or materials to paint with. If you will kindly listen, madam, I will tell you a dream I had last night." The forewoman listened willingly, as she had taken a great fancy to Julie. The child was so pretty and so good. "Well," said Julie, "it was only last night, and it was so real to me yet. It was all about the beautiful Mademoiselle Gabrielle. I thought it was her wedding day, and she was standing in a room filled with the most exquisite presents. It was like fairyland. In her hand she held a white satin fan in which was a most lovely painting of flowers and cupids. This, she was explaining to someone, is one of my most valued gifts, as it was painted for me by a child, poor in all things except God's richest blessings, beautiful nature, a heart of gold, and the gift of genius. I showed the child a kindness, and as she has done this out of love for me. Is it not really lovely? I then took a look at the fan, and oh, it was so beautiful. I can see it still. Indeed, madam. I feel I could do the same design, if you would be good enough to let me try. Oh, thank you for the... Hello, Chronowookaman. Thank you for the posture check and the hydrate. I have almost reached too far for my drink. It's right here. Hello. Whoa. Hi, Grandma. How are you, Grandma Gracie? Welcome in. Thank you for the raid. Terminal Internet James, welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. How are you? How was your stream? What were you doing? For everyone new here, welcome in. My name is Sophia. We are currently reading Romances of Fanland. It is a very old book. It doesn't even exist on Project Gutenberg. I found it at a book fair, went, this is weird, and bought it. It was published in 19 something, I think. We started with as ASMR. Yay! It is cool. It's so, let me see if I can get some more history. You literally, it's impossible to Google this book. Like, you Google it and it's like, did you mean Romances of Finland? I'm like, no, Fanland. Or Stories Told to Violett is the full title. And it says, you spelt Violet wrong and it's Finland. And I'm like, no, Violet is with 2 T's. The only place you can find anything on it, like legit, is if you go, this is the first that I'm now the second hit that pops up. That's wild. If you Google it, it's the University of Wisconsin-Madison and me. Oh no, there's a bot. Be gone, bot. This is the only thing that can be found. Mod, I have a bot. Let me see. Oh, there, thank you. If you click on that link, it'll show you literally all it is. That's all you can find. It was published 1906 by Griffith and Rowland Press. And apparently they had a copy in the University of Alabama library in their rare books collection. I can find nothing else. And I have the exact copy. If you click on the link, that is the exact copy I have. Like, it's that purpley, it's got like the top is gilt edge. It's very odd. But yeah, and if I type in author, that's great. Google it, Wisconsin Madison, and then Sophia Ignacy. Let's see, the author's name is Mignonette Violett Whelen. If you type that up, her name, then a copy shows up on eBay. There's a couple on eBay, I guess. Okay, so you can find it. Apparently, is that a memorial to the author? Yeah, no obituary there. That's pretty much it. And then I guess there's a weird copy. Doesn't even look, it's just a sample image on Amazon. And it doesn't even say what the book is. Like, it's just like a random, who knows even if it is. So really there's nothing on this book, which makes me all the more curious. You almost banned who by mistake? Me? That's a hilarious emote. That's so great. Yet me. What would happen if I was banned from my own chat? That's hilarious. Anyway, I kind of want to do more research on the book, but I wouldn't even know where to start. No, please don't ban me. Okay. Going back. Okay, let's see. I feel I could do the same design if you would be good enough to let me try. And if I draw it and you are satisfied, would you let me have the end of the piece of satin with the spot on it that was left from Mademoiselle Gabrielle's dress? Welcome in, Ike. Hello, Josh. Obscure Philly history right there. You live in Philly. Oh, cool. Maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe I need to look up the publisher and go from there. The author's Mrs. Charles S. Whelen. But on the cover it says Mignonette, Violett, Whelen. Published March 1906, dedicated to my best inspiration, my daughter. I have put it away, and oh, I would like to succeed and give it to her for a wedding gift, and so make my dream come true. The poor woman gladly consented, and a few days later, when Julie brought the drawing to her, she was very much surprised. "This is your work, my child. I can hardly credit it." And then it was passed around the workroom to be admired. Say water or water? Water. Water. Julie was given the piece of white satin and ran home with it to begin her work at once. She thought herself the happiest child in Paris that night. The forewoman let her go early every afternoon so that she could have time to work while the light lasted, and she was up at dawn every morning. Her father's paint box was brought out and put in order, and Julie went about her work like the true artist that she was, her mother watching her with much amusement and pride, wondering, how does the child know so much? She had forgotten how the little one always neglected her dollies to go and stand by her father's side, to watch him mix his colors, and to see the beautiful faces come out of nothing, as she said. These were the happiest days they had ever known, I heard them tell each other. Julie had gotten out all her father's paintings and had put them around the room, and the lovely flowers that Madame Bonneval brought her every day made the room a very bright spot indeed. One day Julie came across a picture, an unfinished head of Ophelia. She ran with it to her mother. "At last, mamma," she exclaimed excitedly, I have found out of whom my beautiful Mademoiselle Gabriella's face reminded me. It is just like this picture of Ophelia. I almost feel that poor Papa must have seen her somewhere. Papa wanted to finish this before he died. He thought it one of his best things. Now, petite mère, I mean to complete this some day when I am a great artist. Hi, blah, blah, welcome in. And then I will sell it for a large sum and will buy you the vine-covered cottage in the country that you are always talking about, where you can sit under the green trees and hear the birds sing all the day. And best of all, we can see God's blue sky, not through a little window, but spread out wide above us in all its wonderful blue. But there, petite mère, you are weeping, and I only meant to make you happy. Now I will go to my work, and, dear friends, as I looked up at her face as she bent over me, I felt I was looking into eyes alight with genius. Her hands, too, were so artistic it was a pleasure to have her touch me. As she finished each one of these lovely roses on me, she would give a sigh of satisfaction. At this, each fan leaned forward to get a look at the painting. "You are lovely," they cried with time. "Hello, well, thank you for the follow. Welcome to class, Josh." "You are lovely," they cried with one voice. "Do tell us how old Julie was at this time." "Just 15, but very small for her age. One day she came home with the news that the wedding was to be in 10 days. Early and late, and even on Sundays after Mass, she worked on me, and one day the forewoman gave her a full holiday for the finishing touches. The next afternoon she wrapped me up carefully in some nice white paper that Madame Bonneval had given her, and started with me to the forewoman, who had been so kind and encouraging. Her mother had sent her off with "Good luck to you, my child," and Julie bounded down the steps with a light heart, fairly running in her eagerness to reach Worth's. When she turned into the avenue, she saw a little 3-year-old child leave its nurse's side and start across the street. Around the corner dashed a pair of spirited horses, which were almost upon the child before the coachman could stop them. It did not take Julie a second to grasp the whole situation. I was dropped as she made a wild grab for the child, and pulled the little one back just in time to save it from certain death. Both fell and rolled over, but they were out of danger. Great was Julie's astonishment to find herself being praised for her bravery and shaken hands with on all sides, and more astonished still to see the Duc de Rochelle and Gabrielle step out of the carriage in great excitement and came toward her. A moment more and Gabrielle's arms were around her. "My brave Julie, get into our carriage quickly and come out of the crowd." Just then I heard Julie say, "Oh, my package, where is it?" "Where is it?" And I was handed to her by a man who had picked me up when dropped to rescue the baby. The paper was partly torn off, and when we got into the carriage, I rolled out onto the floor, exposed to the admiring gaze of the Duke and Gabrielle. "Why, child, where did you get this exquisite painting? What taste! What a perfect design!" "Ah, thank you, I appreciate it. We do readings every Wednesday and Saturday. Wednesdays is usually a children's book, and Saturday nights are usually an adult book, older too. This one, I didn't know what it was. It's kind of a kid's book, I'm thinking. But, that's usually how it goes. Julie was now blushing to the roots of her hair. "I did it, if you please, mademoiselle," she modestly replied. "It is painted on a piece of mademoiselle's satin dress, and I intended it for mademoiselle's wedding present, if mademoiselle would accept it." Tears filled Gabrielle's eyes. She was indeed touched with such devotion. With hearty thanks she kissed Julie, and that was the proudest moment of the child's life. Then followed many questions as to where Julie had learned to paint. The little girl told the story of her father's life, his struggle to have his work appreciated, and of his sad death. By the time they had reached Julie's home, the Duke, who was a great connoisseur and art critic, made up his mind to see the pictures of this unknown artist, and sent her ahead to see if the mother would receive them, whispering to Gabrielle, "My dear, your little protégée is a genius, and must be the child of a genius. I shall know more of her." What was their surprise on entering a garret to find its walls hung with beautiful paintings. At once the critical eye of the Duke took in their value. "Am I to have the rare privilege of discovering a second Millet?" he thought. He begged the mother to show him all of her husband's works, including drawings and sketches, the unfinished ones as well. While he was admiring these with Julie at his side, drinking in his appreciation of her loved father's work, Gabrielle was telling the mother how touched she was by the child's love and admiration for her, and of her delight over her lovely gift. "It will be of priceless value some of these days when Julie's name is famous. I really hesitate to accept such a present. Money would hurt the child's feelings, but the Duke has promised me to have her taught by the best teachers in Paris." Just then a cry of surprise from the Duke made Gabrielle turn. Julie had uncovered the unfinished head of Ophelia, and the Duke saw the sad eyes of his beautiful Gabrielle looking at him from the canvas. "This cannot be your work, my child. Explain. I cannot understand the resemblance." The mother replied, "That was my husband's last work. He told me it was the face of his dreams." "Well, madam, it was a very happy dream for him, for if you will part with it, I will have a price put upon it by some unbiased critics, and will pay you any sum they agree upon. If your daughter follows in her father's footsteps, she may finish it some of these days. Before long, madam, Paris will be ringing with your husband's praises. I shall, with your permission, have all these pictures framed and put on exhibition, and I shall write the account of them myself for the newspapers." After many thanks on the mother's part, Gabrielle and the Duke left, taking me with them to the jewelers, to be mounted at once. Here the cross little Fan interrupted with, "Seems to me you were very cheerful about leaving your mistress and going into more aristocratic company." "No, indeed, I was not truly, but I was cheered by the conversation of the Duke, who was predicting such happiness and greatness in store for my sweet Julie. You must now hear what happened at Tiffany's, a branch of the New York house. When Mr. B., the head of the firm, examined me, he was very much pleased. "This the work of a girl. Leave me her address, for I can get as many orders as she can fill." Gabrielle's face beamed. More good luck for her little friend, she thought. A young Fan, wide awake and full of curiosity, now broke in with, "But tell us how you got into this collection, because I don't see how any amount of money could have bought a gift made to your charming Gabrielle under such touching circumstances." "No, indeed it could not," replied the painted Fan. "I am going to explain, but perhaps I am tiring you with my long story, and I had better wait until tomorrow evening, when we shall be alone again." "Oh no, you may be sold tomorrow," they cried, "and we shall never hear what became of Julie or Gabrielle." "We must know whether her marriage turned out successfully," cried the dainty little lace wedding Fans. "Give us the end tonight." To continue, the wedding came off. I heard it all from Julie, for you must know I went back to her for a time. I will tell you about that in a moment, as she told it to her mother. The picturesque old church of Notre Dame was filled with the world of fashion. Julie, who had a good seat, was absorbed with the beautiful music and was craning her neck around to have the first glimpse of the bride, when she overheard a conversation going on behind her that made her very sad. "How could she marry such an old fright?" said one. "She cannot love him," said another. "Her mother has just sold her." "For my part," said a younger woman, "I would rather have gone into a convent. My, but she must be a lump of ice and very mercenary," etc., etc. Julie almost cried out in her pain. She longed to tell them how noble and true the Duke was, how tenderly he loved Gabrielle, and that she was not cold, was not. But here the organ pealed forth the wedding march, and the bride was coming up the aisle. Just as she arrived opposite Julie, the child threw a lapful of white roses at Gabrielle's feet, which brought a bright flush of pleasure to her face. When she came down the aisle, she looked so happy and beautiful that Julie said to herself, "When I become great, I will paint her with that smile, for I can never forget it." Thank you for the hydrate. Hi, Zen. Welcome in. I'm drinking a Pocari Sweat, courtesy of Lorelei. I still have some bottles left. My story now goes back to the jewelers. When Gabrielle had first taken me to Tiffany's to be mounted, Mr. B. called a gentleman forward who, he told Gabrielle, was a great fan connoisseur. It was the same fan agent we have heard about before. Of course, he wanted me to at once for his exhibition and offered any price for me, but Gabrielle said, "It is a present and no money can buy it." "What a pity," replied the agent. "It would be such a good thing for your protégée to have her work in such an unusual exhibition as this, for it will be advertised all over the United States." This made Gabrielle thoughtful, as she wanted to do what was best for Julie's advantage, but she could not part with her precious gift. The agent suddenly exclaimed, "I have an idea, madam. You know when an American sets his heart on a thing he generally gets it, if money can buy it. Now my proposal is this, that your little artist shall copy this fan exactly, if madam will permit it, and I will offer 500 francs for it, to be sent over as soon as it is finished. I sail in a few days, and I make the condition that I take this one with me to be in time for the exhibition. If anybody wants to buy it, I will tell them the duplicate is coming. Now, madam, if you are interested in the future of your protégé, I think you will consent to this." Gabrielle and the Duke consulted apart and concluded to let him have it. I was then taken back to Julie, who started to work at once on copying the roses. For the cupids she could use the same designs, her father's. It was the painting of the flowers she wanted to copy. She was pleased with the idea of her work going to the far-away, wonderful country she had heard about. For 6 days she hardly stopped working to eat her meals. When the agent came for me, he saw enough of the copy to feel that it would be an exact reproduction. He spoke many encouraging words to Julie of her talent, while I was being wrapped up tenderly and sadly by my small mistress. "Ah, monsieur," she said, "you cannot understand how I hate to part with this little fan. It has brought me all my happiness. You will see it again before long, I hope, back in the Duchess's hands, and I hope we shall see you in America some of these days. Au revoir, mademoiselle." "Oh, were you not sad?" the other fans cried. "Well, not so sad as I might have felt. I was much excited about traveling to a strange country, and I knew I would be coming back in a few months to hear all about Julie's progress and success under the influential patronage of the Duc de Rochelle. I know my twin sister will arrive soon," the fan said with a smile, "and you will all have an opportunity of judging whether we are exactly alike or not, and I shall perhaps have the latest news of my dear Julie." It really doesn't work like that anymore. It really doesn't. It's sad. "Good luck to her," they all cried, "and many thanks to you for your interesting story." Just then noises below were heard, and they realized there was no time to hear another story, for the men were opening shop. So with sleepy goodnights to each other, they all settled down for a comfortable snooze. A moment after, the men came in to dust the showcases, and they little suspected what interesting events had been going on all night among these dainty little things. Okay, is it back? I think I might be back. Ooh, I was scared for a minute. I was like, oh my god, where am I going? I'm back, okay. It did lag. Okay, I was like, whoa, what's happening? Why is everything turning red? Hello, Lilia, the story writer. Welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. The YouTube side didn't stop. That's weird because on my side it was buffering. That's how I noticed. I glanced over and went, why am I buffering? I just repeated. Wait, what? Is this a Twilight Zone? What's happening? On silk. Painted silk fan. Okay, so here is I'm trying to find a nice picture of a painted silk fan. Okay, so this is, no, that's not. Okay, this might be, okay. Okay. Am I back or no? Okay, here's a picture of a here's a picture of a hand-painted silk fan with mother of pearl, and it's mid-19th century, so it's approximately when this this book was written. Ooh, that's big. But this is the kind of work we're thinking of right now when we're talking about the painted fan. Obviously, this is not the artwork used. The little girl did flowers and cherubs on it, but it's something akin to this. I don't have any painted fans. So all these fans are very different from each other. Anyone have a favorite one yet? Little cross fan. 19th century. I can't find... I don't know what this cross fan is. Victorian. Yeah, it's Victorian. Wait, what's this? No, that's a ceiling fan. No. Let's see. Let's see if it gives a description. Because I can't see anything about a cross. I see paddle fans. Okay. Chapter 7, The Story of the Little Cross Fan. Great was the excitement among the fans when the shop was closed for the night again. They were anxious to resume their chatter. What an exciting day it had been for sure. It had been to be for sure. To begin with, there was the lace fan to be congratulated on the beauty and sweetness of her young mistress, who had been their first visitor. She had brought her fiancé with her, and the great interest she had shown in Marie's exquisite work, and their happy faces as they examined it together, interested all the fans exceedingly. Oh no, that's fine. You fit in perfectly well with this group. I'm a lit geek. Matsu's a movie geek. We've got all the bases covered here. Many of them had been bought. They had all been admired, and the foreign fans were much impressed with the different language. These pages are so... The different language and voices of the people who had peered into the case. They had enjoyed being taken out, examined, and praised, and were all in a good humor, except the feather fan. She had not been sufficiently admired, and was overheard confiding to her next-door neighbor that a fan of her beauty and importance should have had a showcase all to herself. She could hardly wait to learn what the fans thought of her beautiful owner, the Duchess of Normanland, who had remained a long time that morning examining them all. They had a good chance to look at her, and the general verdict was that she seemed proud, and although beautiful as a statue, appeared as cold as one, and just the person to own the proud feather fan, who had not been much of a favorite with any of them, except the little gauze fans, who used to lie under her protective feathers at night when they grew too cold and sleepy to listen. But they all missed the Spanish fan. The Princess Eulalie had come to claim her as she was leaving New York. They had much to say of her. The little American fans had been quite excited to see a real princess for the first time. And she was so pretty and animated, and her voice so like music, they all wished they could be bought by her and live with her forever. Just before the Spanish fan left them, the little gauze fans whispered, "We loved your story the best. It was so romantic, and we hope you may be carried to another bullfight by the princess herself, and see your Manuelo again, a victor in the arena." You're an art director? Oh, cool. I love it. My model is so lagging today. Notes were compared as to which fan had been most admired. It was hard to say, but the painted fan, who had been nearest the little cross fan in the corner, had been much impressed by the fabulous sums she had heard two gentlemen offering for it. One said if Mr. Tiffany would let him have it at once, he would give $1,000 for it. The fans were also troubled. They feared he would consent, and they would never hear the story of which they overheard snatches all day, just enough to make them long for the night to come, when they would hear it from her very own lips. She had no bonnets. Wait, which author? Shut up, really? How did you... What are you using to search? That's... Shut up. That's insane. I can't find, like, anything... Okay, here I see something. Find a grave. Mignonette, Violett, Whelen. Oh my god. Oh my god. Wait, this is what's hysterical. She was born in New Orleans, but died in Kenwood, Pennsylvania. I don't think it will let you, but is it this one? Is that how it's pronounced, Kenwood? Because that's my favorite movie is To Wong Fu, Thanks for Everything, Julie Newmar, and Vita Bohem is from Kenwood. And they're driving and it's on the map and Chi Chi is saying it. She's like Kenwood because she can't pronounce it. Oh my god, that's so funny. Oh my god, that's nuts. Wow. I need to research her more. Wife of Charles Smith Whelen. I wonder if she knows that here in 2025, we are reading her book and absolutely delighted by it over a century later. It's walkable. Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to do some more searching. I wonder if I could find some of her done photo shoots in there for real. This is so serendipitous. This moment, everything is coming full circle. Filled with mausoleums. I mean, her gravestone. Let's see what's on the bottom. In my hand, no price I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. It's rather impressive stone. Huh. Interesting. Okay, let's continue on. See what kind of fan this is. The little cross fan by this time was in such a good humor, for she had been pacified by all the praise she had received throughout the day, and when she was called upon to tell her story, she responded most graciously. Well, my dear friends, I must say I was agreeably surprised at the appreciation shown by the Americans. After all, they do know a good thing when they see it. The price offered for me quite startled me. Here there were tears in her voice. Oh, if my poor master had had only a small part of that sum at one time, he might not have suffered from hunger and cold. Did you know there were 2 men, one from Chicago, the other from New Orleans, who had come on especially to see me? I found one old lady crying over me. She was French. They were tears shed for the beautiful, sad queen who owned me. Here the ahs and ohs of expected pleasure followed, and the little fan began. I want you to follow me to the beautiful gardens of the Petit Trianon, the charming summer home of Marie Antoinette. There, in a rose-covered bower overlooking the loveliest miniature lake, where many white swans are gliding with graceful motion, sits an artist, Boucher by name, a well-known fan painter of his time. He is ready to begin his morning task. Before him is a small table with a board on it, and on this is tacked a piece of white vellum. That was I in an embryo state, my friends. I was wondering what was going to happen to me when I saw a beautiful woman looking over the artist's shoulder, and she was holding by the hand a most attractive-looking boy. Her face was lighted with a great mother love that added much to her glorious beauty. I heard her say, "This is my son, the Dauphin, whose portrait I wish you to paint on that fan." So is this a circular fan? Yeah. Serendipity is like, my grandmother had named her cottage Serendipity. It's like everything's like good and happy and perfect. It's serene. Its official definition is the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. These events are, it's just by chance that Grandma Gracie raided in here. I think you came with, did you come with Grandma Gracie? It's just by chance that you happen to be here. And I'm reading, of all the millions of books I can read in the world, I'm reading this very obscure book, which just happens to be very close to where Josh lives. One look at the boy, and I was pleased, indeed, to think that as long as my life should last, that sweet face and I should be inseparable. He was such an interesting little fellow, so patient at his sittings, and the wonder in his lovely eyes as he saw my reflection of his face was so pretty to watch. "Mother, do I look like that?" he would exclaim. It was, see, it was complete serendipity tonight. I'm wondering, is this an actual fan painter? Yeah. Fans. No. Doesn't seem to be. Every morning during those happy months we had a rendezvous in the rose bower. The queen was nearly always with her son, and I have thought since then that those were her happiest hours. When the boy would run away to rest, she would follow his pretty motions with loving eyes, and as he fed the swans, she spoke openly to the artist of her plans and hopes for the future of her little son. I grew to know her well during those talks. She wanted most that he should be a model ruler of his people, to know them and their needs, to make reforms that were badly needed. And then a sadness would come into her lovely eyes, as if they saw something of the shadow hanging over his young life. She urged the artist to make a perfect likeness, for she said, no matter what happens, that fan will never leave my possession. Even the design was suggested by her, a garland of roses tied with blue ribbons held up by cupids, encircling a medallion, and the boy's face on the center. To the right of this was painted a view of the lake with the swans upon it, and the picturesque little dairy in the distance. To the left the summer house in which we met, covered by myriads of June roses. I was so sorry when the sittings came to an end, for I somehow felt such happy days would never return. The queen was delighted with me, and I heard her say, "This will be the greatest comfort to me should I ever be separated from my boy." Little did she realize how soon that separation would take place. I am glad, my friends, that I had no gloomy forebodings at that time. Now that I was finished, I was full of the idea of court festivities. Hanging at the queen's side, I should go to the balls and the plays of which I had heard her speak so often, but I had to wait some time, as it took several months to have me mounted. You can see how fine the work is on these mother-of-pearl sticks. I was very impatient to get back to my royal mistress and to begin my gay life in her company. One day I was so angry with the workman who laid me aside to work on something else that I shut myself up with such a hard snap I broke one of my sticks. Another delay. I must confess my temper has got me into trouble on many occasions. You see, my young friends, this to the dainty little gauze fans, I must moralize right here. I was longing too much for the pleasures of life, and alas, I never saw the fetes and gaieties of Marie Antoinette's court. The box in which I arrived was opened only for a moment by the queen to see that I was all right. It was a terrified face that looked at me, and her voice was greatly agitated as I heard her say to her lady-in-waiting, "Put that with my jewels and never let it leave your possession for a minute." Ah me, you will scarcely believe it when I tell you that the next time I saw the queen her beautiful hair had turned quite gray. The night the royal family tried to escape from Paris, I had been packed with the queen's jewels, and had them handed to Madame de Campan, the queen's lady-in-waiting, who had expected to join her royal mistress at the pretty mountain village Auvergne. Alas, the royal family was betrayed and brought back to Paris, barely escaping with their lives from the fury of the mob. I heard every detail of that horrible time from the queen herself, for when she recalled Madame de Campan, almost her first question was, "Are the jewels and my precious little fan safe?" Here the cross little fan gave a heavy sigh. Then, recovering herself, resumed. When I was handed to her, she covered me with kisses and gazed long and lovingly at the face of her pretty boy. "Oh," she cried, "something tells me my son will never be king of France. I felt it that terrible night when our flight was interrupted." Then she described to Madame de Campan all that had happened, and no wonder the poor queen's hair had turned white. After this I never left her. When the little Dauphine was not with her, I seemed to be her greatest comfort. Ah, my friends, this to the fans, if I could only write down all the things she used to say to me, it would form an unchronicled chapter of the history of those times. Well, to shorten my story, I will carry you on to the last sad days in the temple, the place where the royal family was imprisoned. I was kept hidden now at the bottom of the queen's work-basket, for she was closely watched day and night by the jailers. One day some municipal officers came in, and seeing the king teaching the little Dauphine writing and arithmetic, they took away everything, not even leaving them a scrap of paper. This alarmed the queen, for she felt that her work-basket would go next. Sure enough, one by one they were deprived of their little comforts, such as scissors, knives, and finally the work-basket. But I had been taken out, for the queen had made me a pocket inside her sleeve, and I felt quite secure for a time. Saturdays followed. The family were all separated. Never shall I forget the queen's cry of anguish when they led her away to a lonely cell. I thought she would lose her mind for a time, but she was very brave. The thought that she must live for her boy's sake made her strong to endure all things. The cell in which she was put was dark and dreary indeed, with one narrow grated window, out of which she could see only the blue sky. There was no pretty garden, no lake, no rose-covered summer-house. Involuntarily she felt for me up her sleeve. I was the only link with those happy days. I felt the sobs that were shaking her. Looking to see if the jailer had gone, she took me out from my hiding place and covered me with kisses. I heard her sigh as she gazed at the child's face. "Am I ever to see you more, my darling boy?" "Oh, there is so much I wanted to say to you which might have helped you to avoid the follies, temptations, and mistakes that have been disastrous to our reign. A mother's last words and prayers would make such an impression. If I had only known we would be separated so soon. I might have known. I might have known," and then followed agonized weeping. Here the little fan was so overcome that she could not continue for some time. The fans were wide awake with sympathetic interest. Even the proud father fan felt her own insignificance in the presence of such royal grief, and she was hanging on every word with unaffected intentness. "To continue," said the little fan, "the queen seemed to be possessed with but one idea now, to get a message to her little son. One day she saw the sentinel who walked up and down before her cell looking at her with what she thought was a look of pity and sympathy, and she summoned courage to ask him for a pencil and some paper. He replied in a kind voice, "Your Majesty." That was loyal, she thought. "I cannot do it. I am watched and would be caught and guillotined. My heart bleeds for your sufferings. I am the son of one of your gamekeepers, and we are in sympathy with you, but I am powerless to help you now." I was glad to hear these words. He was a friend at least, and during the next week the queen had several proofs of his devotion. And now I will tell you how the poor queen's prayers were answered. In Lot 9, which is closer to the Philly Art Museum. That's nice. I mean, her book is a work of art for sure. I wonder what gave her the inspiration for writing this book. Like, did she go to a fan show and decide to tell the stories of them? I don't know why I just looked up Marie Antoinette fan. Did she say "not without my fan"? which have painted fans as well. Really? No, not Marie Antoinette fan art. I'm talking fans. Um, I can't see of anything like that would have been hers. Used as a meme back in the day, a wish to be rich. Really? Interesting. Let's see. I told you her cell had a grated window in it, and it was under the eaves of a projecting roof where a large number of pigeons had made their nests. The queen induced them to alight on the ledge of her window for the crumbs she placed there, and they soon became tame enough to eat from her hand. She would talk to them in a low voice, saying how she wished they could be her little messengers to her son, to tell him she was thinking of him and that he must be brave and good for her sake. One morning she found some little tail feathers. The pigeons had left them on the window sill. I felt her start as she gathered them up and hastily thrust them up her sleeve. What will she do with these? I thought. She is hiding them for a purpose. I soon found out. She asked the sentinel for a penknife to trim her nails. He gave it to her when he saw he was not watched, and soon she was trimming. Not her nails, but the little quills. She was making them into pens. Then back they went into their hiding place. I heard her ask the sentinel if he would be on duty all night. Yes, your majesty, he whispered. I shall never forget your kindness, my brave fellow, and I shall recommend you to my son. She said this in such a positive way, I felt she must have received a message that she would be allowed to see him. It was a beautiful moonlight night. The queen walked to the window and sat where the moonbeams covered her with a silver glory. She drew me stealthily from my hiding place to gaze at her boy's picture. As I looked up at her, I was shocked by the change in her face. Well, hello, Active Camouflage. Welcome in. How are you? Over in YouTube. It was glorified by suffering, and the look of the martyr was stamped upon it. I saw the penknife in her hand. I saw, oh horror! I shudder now as I think of it. I saw her stick it into her arm, and I heard the blood trickle into a tin cup she held in her lap. Had she opened an artery, I thought, and was she bleeding to death? Oh, if I could only call the sentinel to the rescue! But I knew that he could not understand the fan language, so that was helpless. In a little while I saw her bind her arm up tightly with a scarf. Then I was turned face downward on her lap, and soon I felt something scratching over my back. She was writing on me there in the moonlight, which was as bright as day, writing with her heart's blood in the little pigeon quills. She was writing so finely, so finely. She had much to say to her darling boy. She must have written for several hours. It was a laborious task. She only stopped for want of space. And do you mean to say, here interrupted the other fans, that handwriting is still distinguishable on your back, Marie Antoinette's own handwriting? Oh, please turn around that we may see. And all the fans jumped off their stands in a hurry to reach the little fan to have the first look. But the lights were low and the writing was so faded, their peep was not satisfactory. They returned to their stands and settled down to hear the rest of the story. The pretty painted fan had gotten recovering from a cold. I saw that you weren't feeling well the other day. I'm glad you're feeling better now. Day's going well here. We're gonna be finishing up this book this stream. We're on the story of the little cross fan. And it seems actually that it was, let's see. I'm going to assume that that talks about, okay, she was isolated. Is it an actual, like, does this fan actually exist? I don't know. I'm not seeing anything about it. It would certainly be interesting if it was a real one, but thank you. I'm very glad as well. Okay, let's see. Here we go. The pretty painted fan had gotten very close to the little fan. She was so sympathetic. Besides, she was French. The little fan continued. The queen returned me to my hiding place after throwing away the quills. She fell asleep from sheer exhaustion, for had she not spent her life's blood. I was glad she could sleep, poor soul. I could not. I was too agitated. The next day she received notice of her doom. How grandly calm she was! God had answered her prayers. She had the strength to bear even this blow. How to get me to her son seemed to trouble her more than anything else. Could she trust the sentinel? She dreaded to risk it. Waiting for a favorable opportunity, she fell on her knees beside the grated door. "Have you a mother?" she pleaded, great sobs shaking her frame. A tear glistening in his eye answered her. She saw she had touched the right spot. "For her sake, you must help a poor, distracted mother get this little fan to her son. On the back of it I have written my last words to the Dauphin. Do not give it to him now, but when all these dreadful times are over, then send it to him if you can. These words may affect the future of France. Swear to me you will do this for your queen." "I swear," he answered, as he hurriedly thrust me into the bosom of his shirt, for he heard the distant step of the sentinel coming to relieve him. "My dear friend," said the little fan, "I never saw my beautiful mistress again. Perhaps you know how she and the king both perished on the scaffold, and of the trying fate which overtook the little Dauphin. The soldier would have been true to his promise, but he never found the opportunity. Rumors of the Dauphin's death came while he was at home on his furlough. Strange to say, my soldier was the son of the head gamekeeper in the Versailles grounds. When he told his parents about me, they were seized with great fear. Everyone lived in hourly peril in the reign of terror. He must throw it in the lake, they cried. If found in their possession, they would all be guillotined. But the soldier said as long as there was no certainty of the Dauphin's death, he could not do that. He felt that the fan had been given him in trust. He consented to my being hidden, but not destroyed. My soldier friend was ordered away that night, and so, my dear friends, once more fate seemed against me. The old people put me in a tin box and hid me under a joist in a dark corner of a garret, and there I spent many weary years. They died while the soldier was away and left no word where they had hidden me. But I will say that when he returned he made a search for me, even looking through every old box and trunk in the garret. I cried out, 'Here I am,' but of course he could not understand our language, so I resigned myself once more to my dark fate. I lay there for over 60 years more, and then I was found in a most unexpected manner. During this long period many changes had taken place. My stalwart soldier friend was a grandfather now, and the house was so overflowing with children it was found necessary to enlarge it. On raising the roof of the attic, a carpenter came across the tin box which contained me. He brought it to the old grandfather, and the children and grandchildren gathered around with much excitement while he was trying to force the lock. "Oh, Grandpapa, suppose it is full of gold. We shall then be rich. Hi, Spaghetti, how are you? Welcome in. Long time no see." "It is too late for money," the old man replied, as with one more effort the lid flew off, and then I saw many flushed faces looking at me with different expressions of curiosity and disappointment. "Only a little old fan," they cried. Well, that was a pretty welcome after over 60 years and being buried alive. "Oh, Grandpapa dear," I heard a sweet young girl say as the old man covered his eyes with his hands. "Oh, what is it? Why are you weeping?" "My children, listen while I tell you a strange story, such a sad one," and he held me reverently in his trembling hands while he told them all that he knew about me. They had never heard anything so interesting. Of course I was passed from one to the other, but the hands that held me longest and the eyes that looked at me with the most sympathy were those of Annette, the oldest granddaughter. The tears were rolling down her cheeks as she tried to decipher the dying words of the ill-fated queen to her poor little son who had met such a cruel fate. Her loving sacrifice was in vain, but I hope her message of love has reached her little son in heaven. What will you do with it, Grandpapa? Annette asked. I will give it to you, my dear, on your wedding day. Well, my friends, I thought, this is a come-down, painted for a queen, and now to be a wedding gift for a peasant maid. But, interrupted a curious young fan, how did you get from Annette in the forest of Versailles to this place? I can hardly wait for this end of the story. Blood fan could be misunderstanding or term from a different context. There's no evidence to suggest that such a fan was there. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking all of these fans are like not actual fans. They've just, been created by the author. You shall hear about this little maid's history, which was almost like Cinderella's. A handsome young artist came to the Versailles forest that summer to paint. He fell in love with Annette's beautiful face and lovely nature and married her. When he heard my history, he at once realized my value, for he was an art collector as well as an artist. He said Annette need have no other dowry, for he knew I would bring a great price. He took this sweet young wife to Paris, where he studied for several years, and after taking the Prix de Rome, this promising young artist went to Rome to live. What a beautiful studio his was! I was quite happy again, for I soon found myself famous. Art connoisseurs from everywhere were constantly coming to see me. I was the talk of Rome that winter. I heard the artist tell Annette one day that he had seen just the thing he wanted to put me in, a worthy home for me. He had discovered a Verny Martin sedan chair, and his idea was to have it lined with crimson brocade, the shelves covered with the same, and convert it into a cabinet in which to put not only the precious fan, that was I, but his other art treasures. Very soon I found I had the most conspicuous position in the beautiful cabinet, and was in company of many exquisite and rare objects d'art. But those were good times. Annette and the artist were very happy, and I loved to watch them from my shelf. As the years sped on, Annette became very devout. She spent most of her time visiting the beautiful old churches of Rome. Her husband brought her home one day a richly carved crucifix, and this, next to me, became her most valued possession. Just a metaphor. The artist that winter was besieged with demands to buy me. A noted collector offered 4,000 lire, and the Duchess d'A, a great fan collector, offered 5,000 lire. But Annette would not part with me. I have a peculiar affection for that fan, she would exclaim. It played an important part in my grandfather's life, and it was my marriage portion. She made her husband promise he would never sell it. Not even after my death, unless you are starving, she said, and he promised her. That winter, the artist was invited by the king to bring the wonderful little fan to court. Thank you for the posture check, Tibbs, and the hydrate. Stretch while I'm at it. Well, my friends, I shall never forget that visit to royalty. I felt quite at home once more, I assure you, this with pardonable pride. I was passed from one pair of hands to the other. I was examined with magnifying glasses, and the miniature of the Dauphin was considered a chef d'oeuvre even for Boucher. You must know I was mounted on a piece of purple velvet and framed in glass. This was to keep me intact, because if I had been opened and shut every time I was examined, there would have been nothing left of me. Only on rare occasions, such as this, was I taken from my frame, that the royal family could read the last written words of Marie Antoinette. There was not a dry eye present when the artist read them, and told the story of how she had written them, and how she had spent her last hours. And then he, of course, had to tell how I came into his possession. The princess said, I would love to own this relic of that poor, beautiful, ill-fated queen. Would nothing tempt you to sell it, monsieur? I trembled at these words. Perhaps after all I would again be owned by a queen. I know, my friends, this was a vain and foolish thought. I should have remembered the fate of my first mistress and of Annette's love for me. I confess my weakness. The artist hesitated for a moment. The temptation was great. He thought it would please the king, and it would make him popular and give him a certain notoriety, as it would certainly be in all the papers in Rome. He might even get orders to paint the portraits of the royal family. But just then the sweet pale face of his wife came before him, and he remembered his promise to her. So he replied he was sorry not to be able to please their majesties, but it belonged to his wife, and she valued it above everything else she owned. The princess was very sweet and kindly, said she could understand why they would not wish to part with an heirloom that had such tender associations connected with it. Only one more bright experience before misfortune again befell me. On this occasion the Pope wished to see me, and Annette asked that she be allowed to take me to the Vatican. She carried the crucifix along, and at the end of our audience she asked the Pope to bless it, which he did. Poor Annette took cold that day, and all that year was ill. Her sweet spirit passed away the following winter. On her deathbed she placed her crucifix and me in her husband's hand and said, "Raphael, the one will influence your life, the other will always remind you of me." He was almost crazed with grief at her loss. He could not work. He grew morbid, then began drinking to drown his sorrow. Alas, the first step downward was easy. He worked less and drank more as the years went by, and I saw the pictures going one by one to pay for drink. Then the pretty belongings gradually followed. Finally the auctioneer came. Everything was sold except the crucifix and myself. He refused the help of his friends and separated himself from all his past associations by moving away from the dear old studio. That he took us with him made us feel that his conscience was not wholly dead. I will not give you the details of our life after that. We lived in a garret. I could hear him stumbling up the steps at night. Then came a time when he would stay away all day, and at night I could hear him counting money. I was glad to know he was making it, but how? Now, my friends, I must hurry along with my story by telling you how I came here and how Mr. Tiffany's agent found me. I heard about it later. One day my poor master was sitting in front of a saloon. He had spent all his money. He was thinking how he could make more, when he spied a piece of chalk on the ground. Picking it up, he began drawing on the pavement the head of a pretty child who stood near him. In a few moments quite a crowd had collected and offered him a scudi to continue. What a come down from a good artist to this! But he was desperately poor. "El mejor, welcome in." Oh, I completely forgot that I need to turn on my captions. This went on for a week, until one day Mr. Tiffany's agent, who had been searching that part of the town for curiosity shops, saw the crowd and pushed his way through to find a shabby-looking man with a refined face, drawing wonderful portraits of the people. He became interested and offered the man 5 lire to draw his face. The artist, recognizing someone in his own class of life, became conscious, and making some excuse, walked away. It would take too long to tell you how Mr. F. followed him, saved him from committing suicide, and proved himself a kind friend. For a week he visited him regularly each day, urging him to come to America, where he offered him a position in connection with Mr. Tiffany's large establishment. This kindly interest soon gained my master's confidence. I heard him tell Mr. F. my history, which deeply interested him, and I was taken from my box with pride and shown to him. I never saw anyone so enthusiastic as he was over me. It was quite like old times to be so much admired. Mr. F. then said, "My friend, this is quite a coincidence, for I have been in Europe a long time, collecting rare fans for an exhibition Mr. Tiffany is to have next month, and may I suggest that you sell this fan to him, for he would appreciate its value, and would, I know, offer you a sum large enough to enable you to begin life afresh." Dear me, I thought, is he going to part with me in this cold-blooded manner? I was getting very nervous when I heard him say, "I cannot answer you tonight. Give me until tomorrow to consider your kind proposition." That night was spent on his knees with Annette's crucifix in his hands and me on the table before him. But I cannot describe such a scene. The struggle with self lasted until morning. Then, placing me in a box, he took me to the agent, and giving me to him, said, with a catch in his voice, "I promised my dear wife never to part with this precious little fan unless I was starving. My friend, I was starving in more senses than one. My soul was starving for a kind word, a helping hand. You gave me both, and I know Annette would advise me to repay your kindness by granting your request." 1 week later, we started for America. I was not happy. I dreaded changes. I did not want to be put into a showcase to be gazed at by all kinds of people who would not appreciate me or my origin. I felt not to be recognized at my full value. Not to have my story listened to with sympathy would kill me. Well, it has not been so bad after all. I think I rather enjoyed the day and the praise I received. My dears, this to the dainty gauze fans, you see one is never too old to care for admiration. I know my dear master will be here tomorrow, and though he has aged greatly from suffering, you will see how handsome he still is. I will whisper to you when he comes. It makes me sad to part with him, and I am anxious about my fate. However, I shall not borrow trouble. Good night, my friends. Please offer a wish for me that I may be bought by someone that will appreciate me, and who will give me some quiet nook in an old cabinet where I can live over in congenial surroundings the many experiences of my wonderful career, and where I can occasionally see French faces bending over me in breathless interest. "Oh, you dear little fan," the lace and painted fans cried with loving sympathy. The former said, "How I wish Mrs. Lovett would buy you for Marie. I would like to be near you always." The other fans thanked her profusely. "Never," they cried, "could any of us have a history so absorbingly interesting." "That's all very well," whispered some frivolous little Watteau fans to each other, "but we did not listen to half of it. We were too far away, and her voice is so weak and cracked." And as soon as they saw that the little fan had fallen asleep from sheer exhaustion and the telling of her emotional story, they said, "Oh, do someone tell us a bright one of this century. We cannot go to sleep on such a sad tale as that. We would have bad dreams." What is a Watteau fan? Let's see if we can find something. Oh, it's by Jean-Antoine Watteau, Rococo style. Does this sound up your alley, Josh? Oh, Antoine. Is this one? I'm trying to. Is this one of them? It looks like this might be a Watteau fan. Okay. Let me take a look at this one. Let's see. Drawing, French paper, prints and drawings. I don't think this one is Watteau. But there are. It looks like this is. It looks like this Rococo is chiaroscuro-esque. This is what comes up. The wedding contract. I don't know. I can't tell if this is like. If this is one of them. But it comes up under his name. And then in this one it says pleated fan. Pleated fan. And after Antoine Watteau. I don't know what the after means. I have no idea what after means. The biggest fan. Active camouflage. Heavy shadows and dramatic. Would this be it? What about this one? That one comes up under his name too. It seems like that style. Rococo was a classical style from the Renaissance. A revisiting. I don't know a lot about art. Just that one of my favorite artists is Alphonse Mucha. Okay. And now oh, this one's chapter 8. The other was chapter 6. No, this is 7. Chapter 7. The other one was chapter 6. This is, I believe, the last chapter of the book. Yes, chapter 7, the last one. Alphonse Mucha. Is your whole... Oh, no way, really? That's awesome. Oh my gosh. One of these days, there's an artist on Twitter that I found that I've saved. They do art in that style. Just a potato, not exactly art expert. Camouflage. I am a potato. If you are what you eat, I am also a potato. After apps designed in their style. Oh, that makes sense. That would. Yeah, and I want to get that done because I think that would look amazing. Even had some of them done in water reduction, preserve the original. Really? That's awesome. That's really cool. Okay, chapter 7. Story of the Chinese fan. Let's see if we can find a good, appropriate Chinese fan. Oh, let me see. Let's see. This one was, she said, I just glanced ahead. It said she was made by an empress. See if I can find one. No, I want a legit one. Stop with this nonsense. I don't know what kind of fan. No, that's a Korean fan. That's not. Let's see. I don't know what dynasty it is. It doesn't say. Okay, let's just read it and then I'll figure out what kind of fan it is. Here we go. Why, surely you pretty little gauze fans must have histories, the lace fan said. Very up to date, to be sure, but interesting. At this, the little gauze fans tittered and became so self-conscious that the Chinese fan came to the rescue and volunteered to tell her story, which she said would cover the requisite demand, as her whole history, every part of her, belonged to this century, and she not only was owned by an empress, oh, not another queen's fan, they all cried, but was made by one. Original might be a good term, especially if they give an era. Yeah. It looks like it's, well, whenever this show would have taken place, so late 1800s, 18th century. Let's continue. Made by an empress, they all exclaimed. And the gauze fans said, "Oh, that's not our idea of a queen. We thought queens just sat on thrones with crowns on their heads and had people bow down to them all day long. We never knew they did any work." "You don't mean to say she did all that beautiful embroidery and carved those ivory sticks?" "Oh, not the ivory. That was done by— But then I am commencing at the wrong end of my story. Shall I begin at the beginning?" "Pray do," they replied, and they all fixed themselves comfortably to listen. She was the only Oriental fan in this showcase, and as none of them had ever met a Chinese fan, nor had ever been in China, they were prepared to be entertained. "I think I will begin with the ivory part of myself, if you would care to know about the elephant, from whose tusks came the ivory out of which I was carved." "Oh, dear me," the great little gauze fans cried. "Were you part of a great big elephant? How could such a pretty, dainty thing ever have been part of a horrid elephant? Did you like it?" "Well, it was an exciting life I led with that elephant, for he was the king of the herd, and he was always the ringleader and did great mischief whenever they tried to catch him. He killed many men in his day, and I could tell you of natives' huts that he tore down in his fury, and trees he pulled up by the roots, he was so savage. Once he was nearly caught because he stayed behind to help his own baby elephant that could not run so fast as his mama and papa." Are more known for their fans? Yeah. Let's see. A lot of Chinese fans have imperial illustrations on them. The animals of the zodiac. Yeah. The elephant hunters had driven the herd near a trap in which the elephants are caught. Well, my elephant turned and made for the river, driving the little one before him, and when he reached the river, he swung the baby elephant upon his back, plunged in, and swam across, holding his trunk above the water, because you must know elephants breathe through their trunks. Well, he escaped that time and several other times, which I cannot tell you about now, because the end of my life, I think, will interest you more than my jungle tales. "I don't believe it would," said the little gauze fans, "because jungle tales are all about animals and so exciting. Can't you tell us all about your experiences?" "I'm afraid not," said the Chinese fan, "but if I am not bought tomorrow, I can go back to my jungle life." Yeah, that's it. That's it. I'm considering we're talking about Tiffany's. I don't know exactly when Tiffany's was established, but the book was written in 1906. So I'm going to assume this book was like the events take place in the late 1890s, maybe? You're way away. I'm so sorry, Josh. This is what my streams do. I just cause chaos everywhere. Sometimes we get Matsu going on tangents too. Well, I must tell you that my elephant was at last caught in an elephant hunt arranged by the Rajah of Mysore for the entertainment of one of the English princes traveling through India. Every precaution was taken that not an elephant should escape, and none did. My elephant they killed at once. Others were dragged away to be trained for work, just as we use horses instead of machinery. Others were sold to circus men or for zoological gardens, but most of the tusks were sawed off to be sold to ivory merchants, for ivory is very valuable and used for many purposes, as I afterward found out. My elephant's tusks, being the largest, were offered to the royal visitor, but he asked for a smaller pair to be mounted for his smoking den at home. I was sorry he did not choose us, as I would have liked to travel to a new country and see something besides great dark forests in which I had lived all my life. Well, I got an experience in traveling, for I was taken from India to China, which is the best ivory market in the world. I was sold to a celebrated ivory carver employed by the government, and I think it would interest you fans if I were to tell you about this family, for I lived with them for many years, and many things were made out of my tusks besides these sticks. There were 10 children, and the carver loved them all, even the little girls, who are not— Remember, this was written in 1906. Well, I see. Um, just on what's coming up. How is the Rajah's name spelled? Mysore, Mysore. Mysore. Can I type in here? I don't know if that's like, I don't know if that's a real thing. Hello, Ernest Albert. Welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. Ernest Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Yes, Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Okay, so here we go, back to it. Even the little girls who are not very welcome to Chinese parents and are often thrown into the river or into the tall bamboo fields and left to perish. I remember when I first heard of this, I thought, why, I never saw an animal in the jungle do such a thing as this. An animal never deserts its young. Again, 1906, product of its time. However, my Chinaman was good to his children, and he taught them all to be very smart ivory carvers, and the girls as well as the boys. Oh, do tell us which one of them worked on you, exclaimed the other fans. It must have been one of the girls, for you are so daintily carved. You were right, it was a girl, the eldest one, and I grew so fond of her during the 2 years she worked upon me. Oh, did it take so long to carve you? Yes, indeed, every bit of it. She had begged her father a piece of ivory for her very own to do with as she pleased. Great was her delight when he gave it to her, and away she ran with it across the road to her dear friend Twen, with whom she shared all her confidences. They climbed up to a seat in their favorite cherry tree and discussed what should be made out of the ivory. After a long talk about it, they decided to make a fan together. Ah Lu was to carve the sticks out of the ivory. Twen was very clever with her needle, was to embroider the satin, and when it was finished, their plan was to sell it and divide the proceeds. They were so excited over this idea, they entirely forgot that neither of them possessed any satin. Twen was too poor to procure any, but Ah Lu, with her sweet, trusting nature, told Twen she would pray for some. Why, Ah Lu, the gods would not listen to such a foolish prayer. They would be angry. Oh, no, responded Ah Lu. Not if I pray to the god the good missionary told me about when she came to see us. I will tell you about her when I come again. And so they separated. The Maharaja of Mysore was the king and principal ruler of the kingdom of Mysore and briefly of Mysore state of the Indian Dominion, roughly between the mid to late 1300s and 1950. Maharaja's consort was called the Maharani of Mysore. Interesting. Okay, so this is an actual person. It might not be true. Obviously, it's not true, but that is something exists. Interesting. I love when books teach history like that. Great was Tuen's surprise at the next visit when Ah Lu appeared, waving a piece of white satin in her hand. Tuen was asked in an awed whisper, "Did your missionary's God send you that?" Then Ah Lu said she had prayed for it, and it seems her mother had heard her, and the next day told Ah Lu she had found a piece of satin put away in an old chest, which she could give to her friend. So you see, Tuen, the missionary's God must have reminded her mother about that forgotten piece of satin. Well, these ambitious girls began their work together that very day. It was the month of April, that marvelous month of Chinese cherry blooms, and as the two little girls worked in this lovely atmosphere, their friendship grew stronger, and their confidences were freely exchanged. I loved to listen to their chatter. One day, Ah Lu told Tuen of her father's great disgust when he found his 1906. Remember, 1906. One day Ah Lu told Tuen of her father's great disgust when he found his first baby was a girl, and how nearly she was thrown into the river according to the usual custom with the girl babies, and how she owed her life to a kind lady who taught the Jesus doctrine, and what a help she had always been to their family from that time. For, said Ah Lu, when the other two little girls were born, my father never thought of drowning them, because this dear missionary had told him there was a God who is all love, who does not want one of his little ones to perish. In fact, Tuen, the missionary said that this heavenly Father was written all about in his great book which is called the Bible. Father could not take this all in at first, but he knew the lady was all goodness and love, like the God she served, and so when she begged Father that he would... Why am I having a hard time reading suddenly? So when she begged Father that he would let her take me to her missionary school and would come to see how the little castaway, unloved Chinese girls were treated by strangers, he went, and the missionary took him first into a hospital, where she said the little girls were nursed back to life. Then she took him into a lovely bright room called the nursery, where many bright eyes and happy faces greeted him. These, she said, came out of that room, pointing to the hospital. Then she took him to the schoolroom, where the little girls were singing such pretty songs of praise to their dear Savior. Savior means one who saves, Twen, and it was called the Orphanage of the Savior. My father went home to think over all the beautiful things he had seen, which the lady had told him were the result of serving a God who is all love. I am glad he took me to them, Twen, for it was there I learned to read and write, and I too learned the Jesus doctrine. And oh, Twen, a God of love is so much nicer than the gods the Chinese are taught to worship, who hate the children of men and who will only listen to them when they are propitiated by unceasing prayers, incense, and offerings. Again, 1906. This was written in 1906. Savior means one who saves. Everyone else takes 3d6 slash damage. How long were you in this home? Positive relationships with the British. We're talking about either 1799, 1831, or post 1881 when they were once again under the British crown. Given active camouflage, given that this book was written in 1906, and they said, and the fan says that it was made in the same century, I'm going to say post 1881, if that's the case. I mean, it could be early, but my guess is that this fan was post 1881. But then again, most of her life is in China and not in India. How long were you in this home? Twen asked. For 10 years. Oh, I would like to go there and learn all you have learned, Alu. Where is the home? Twen, that dear friend to whom I and my two sisters owe our lives, was driven away 4 years ago by the Boxers, who hate all foreigners. But I have never forgotten her, for I learned through her about the one God to whom they pray as to a father. And when I grow up and can be spared from my father's workshop, I am going to look up my dear missionary, and I will try to be like her to help my own people. I could see that this talk had made a deep impression on Twen, and she asked Alu whether she thought she knew enough to teach her to read and write. They were to begin at their next meeting, but when Twen spoke of it to her father, he would not consent and told her she ought to be ashamed to want to read and write, as no well-brought-up Chinese girl ever did so, that she must be more industrious about her housework and get such ideas out of her head. Probably acquired due to British colonization, because that was resolved in 1950. Maybe? Oh, the Boxer Rebellion was 1890s? Perfect. I love how between my YouTube chat and my Twitch chat, which will be integrated after tonight, I will say, so that all of you should be able to see each other, that we've got history going on. So if the Boxer Rebellion was in the 1890s, then this fan is from the 1890s. Oh, 1899 to... Hello, Pachi. Welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. Boxer... Yeah, then it would have been... Yeah, that seems about right. This is fascinating. Everyone doing research for me. This is great. The girls wept together the next afternoon when they met in their sweet nest in the cherry tree, and Twen said, I suppose I shall have to be a household drudge all my life and work hard to make up to my father for his disappointment in my being a girl. Oh, Alu, why are Chinese girls at such a discount? I have the spirit and ambitions of a boy. My father says I am worth 2 of my brother to him. Well, Tuan, I believe that when we Chinese come to believe in the missionaries' God, our girls will not be at a discount. Then Ah Lu, seeing Tuan so sad, laughingly said, But there, Tuan, I am glad you are not a boy. I should have no friend, and besides, you are too pretty for a boy, and who knows but that you are destined for a brilliant marriage some day. Your face may bring you a fortune. Was Tuan prettier than Ah Lu? Asked the little Mexican fan. Her features were prettier, and she had a brilliant color, but Alu's eyes and mouth were far sweeter in expression. Tuan was restless and quick-tempered, and Alu was all gaiety and sweetness and gentleness. Tuan at her embroidery frame was very fair to look upon. The design she made for the fan showed great taste. She copied the most beautiful blossoms she could find in her garden, also the weirdly colored fish her father kept in his tiny artificial lake, and gorgeous butterflies, which she herself had collected. These were linked with golden threads bright as sunshine. Such charming effects she painted in with her needle. And Ah Lu's work was even more wonderful, for she was carving the same marvels on me. On each of the fan sticks were carved the same butterflies, fish, and blossoms, and on the outside stick, in Chinese letters, she planned to carve their names, Tuan and Ah Lu, closely intertwined, emblematic of their friendship. Oh, let us see the names, the fans cried, and the Chinese fan had to be looked at for some time before she could continue her story. So greatly were they interested by this time. Besides, the Chinese fan was the only hand-embroidered one in the case. There were 2 carved little Japanese fans, but they shrank away into a far corner behind a feather fan, for they felt so insignificant as there were no interesting adventures in their life. And one other little Chinese fan that had just arrived from China was so overcome with a feeling of reverence for anything made by the Empress of China, the absolute sovereign of 400 million subjects, that she came over and prostrated herself at the feet of the important fan. Now, this is how I'm picturing it. I'm picturing the fan just going like face planting in front of the other fan. So if they said she was there for 10 years before, that's correct. It had been 4 years. Story placed in 1903 and 1905. Did Tiffany's have a fan? That's another thing we should look up. Fan display 1900s. Let's see, Tiffany. Oh. We'll say 1905. No. I'm not seeing anything. Again, Tiffany's did have fans. Yeah, Tiffany's did. Would they have done a show though? And I'm seeing some that come up. I'm just wondering if there was like an art show or something, or like a gala of some kind. Dynasty based on that. I'm trying to. Who was the empress in? Empress. Oh, it was probably the Empress Dowager. I think it's Cixi. I know how to pronounce Wu Zetian, but Cixi. Dorothy makes good. Welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. Hold on, let me put on my headset so I can listen. My pronunciation of Chinese is not very good. Cixi. That doesn't tell me the pronunciation. Sishin. No. No, that's a three body problem. Okay. Pronunciation. Zishi. 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 You can have a head pat, yes. Pat, pat, pat. Zishi. Shishi. I should know that. I had a student named Shishi, and it was XIXI. Oh my gosh. So let's see. Did she make Shishi? Ivory fan. That is definitely not what the girls made. No. Ivory embroidered fan. Yeah, Empress Dowager Cixi. So Qing Dynasty. No, that is not it. That's definitely not the one. Because it has embroidery on it. No, it wouldn't be that. Oh, I'm wondering if it's the... You're sleepy. Oh, it's definitely a good time to go to sleep. I'm thinking... It's not that, no. That's a gorgeous fan, though. Embroidered fan. Why is it taking me? No, that's okay. So the only thing that's coming up is an ivory fan that's carved. We know the girls didn't make that. That's not the one. But apparently she did have a very, very gorgeous ivory fan. But that's not it. Oh, thank you for the stand up and stretch. Be careful when standing. No, no worries. Active. Okay, I stand. Okay. I'll just look up in general an embroidered Chinese fan. A leftovers cold. Welcome to class. Thank you for the follow. Depending on... I'm wondering if it's... traditional embroidery. I'm wondering if it's like this. Let me see. All right, Qing Dynasty. Yeah, I was gonna say it's the panel fan, isn't it? It's like, trying to find a good image to do. It would be more like this. Yeah. Yeah, this would be it. So this one was made circa 1880. Yeah. It's this. We're going with a totally different style. So this is close to, oh my god, it's tiny. This is close to what the Chinese fan probably looks like. The one who's telling the story. You're walking your doggo, yay! So we've got definitely a different fan this time. We've had a feathered burlesque fan. We've had some. You found that image too? Okay, let's see. Don't do that, please, said the fan who was telling the story. We are all now in the land of freedom, civilization, and Christianity, and I am glad of it. This outburst created quite a flutter among the fans, and the little Chinese fan had to be assisted to her stand, for she was weak with the effort of trying to readjust everything from another point of view. The other fans asked in chorus if she would tell them how she had got from China to America, and why she was so glad to be here. Patience, my good friends, and I will hurry along. Little Ah Lu finished her part first, and Tuen had nearly finished the embroidery when an awful calamity happened. One of the great Chinese rebellions took place, and wars one of the great Chinese rebellions took place, and war's grim follower, famine, swept over the province of Hunan where the two girls lived. Tuen's father's house was pillaged and burned to the ground, and his rice fields ruined, so he was forced to leave his only shelter. He made up his mind to move to the nearest large city, where a splendid temple of many gods might be a refuge for them until they could form some plans. I heard this sad story from Tuen's own lips as she bade a sad goodbye to her dearest friend. The ivory shop where Ah Lu's father worked was owned by the government, so his family was not disturbed. The two girls clung to one another in a sad farewell. Ah Lu told Tuen to take the hand-carved fan sticks with her, and when she should have finished the embroidery, she could have it mounted and then sell it for a good price, and that she must keep the whole string of cash for the needs of her family, since they had lost everything. Tuen promised to finish it and said, "It will comfort me to work on it, because it will speak to me of the happy hours we have spent together under the lovely cherry trees, alas, now burned to the ground." I was sorry to part with my sweet little mistress. I was put into a strong box with the embroidery and the silks, and was tucked up in the sleeve of Tuen's jacket. You know, perhaps, that the Chinese use their sleeves for pockets. I think my sympathy was for the brave little Tuen, driven from the house that was now in ashes. When Tuen and her family reached the big city, they found it impossible to get work, and Tuen's father, who was really of good birth, was too proud to beg. They prayed and prayed to all the gods in the temple to no avail, and oftentimes Tuen thought, "Oh, if I only knew how to pray to Ah Lu's god of love, he would help." Tuen's mind was very busy with ideas for helping the family. Night after night I heard her praying to her gods to show her the way. She had heard that good prices were given for slave girls, and the child made up her mind to persuade her father to offer her for sale. The father scorned the idea. "You, a slave, in whose veins flows the blood of the Tartars, and whose ancestors have been mandarins and rulers?" But when days passed and they were actually suffering from hunger, Tuen again begged her father to sell her. Oh, she was a brave girl, and I used to cry in my box and long to help her. I knew she would take me with her no matter what happened, for she had not yet finished me. There was never time for that. It would take too long to go into the details of how she was bought by the viceroy of Lucheng, who gave a good price for her. She was taken to his yamen, where she was well treated, and where she proved herself so clever and tactful and eager to learn that everyone grew fond of her. She soon became an expert embroiderer under the guidance of Wang, the head woman of the yamen. Although she was happy now as the viceroy's slave, she never forgot her family. But, alas, she had no way of hearing from them nor of her dear Ah Lu. The only link with the past was her fan, which she had finished and mounted. 2 years passed, and then the viceroy's only child, a boy, died, and he adopted Tuen as his daughter. This made a great change in her life. She was waited on, had beautiful clothes to wear, and jewelry and fans given her, but I was her most precious possession. The viceroy granted her wish to be taught to read and write. She learned so rapidly that he began to teach her himself, and many delightful hours were thus spent. She was loved as a daughter, and the days flew by without a care until something happened that threw her into the deepest gloom. I heard her telling her maid Wang about it. The Emperor of China had just conferred a new and higher decoration on the viceroy, who wished to show his gratitude by laying some costly gift at his sovereign's feet. A consultation with his advisers was held, and they suggested sending the pretty, clever little Tuen as the most acceptable gift he had to offer. The viceroy pondered a long while over this. Tuan was very dear to him, but as he had nothing else worthy of his emperor, he decided to send Tuan. When he broke the news to her, the child was heartbroken. She prostrated herself at the viceroy's feet and almost broke me to pieces, for I was carried in her sleeve pocket. I heard her begging him to let her stay and be his little slave girl forever. When the viceroy explained that he had nothing else worthy to offer his emperor, Tuan begged that she might take her faithful Wang with her, for, next to me, she loved Wang best. Well, my dear friends, I must omit all the details of the interesting journey to Peking, which took 2 months. I thought we would never get there. Tuan was very sick with the excitement and sadness of leaving her happy home. She cried most of the time. I was very anxious to see the great city and the Son of Heaven and his brilliant court. I had never seen anything at the yamen of the viceroy, for Tuan never went out, and when I was not up her sleeve, I was in a dark box. But now, I thought, Tuan would take me with her when she was presented to the emperor. The viceroy had bought her beautiful clothes, so I thought she would go to court, and I would see court life. Little did I realize how much of it I was destined to see. Why, my friends, I have been through enough experiences to fill a book, for it has been over 40 years since little Tuan was sent as a birthday gift to the emperor. Okay, so it was not the late 1800s, because this book took place in 1906. So let's go back. It was still probably, if we're talking about a literal empress, it would have been Emperor Zishi, because that would have been around the time. Maybe not. Maybe who was before her? Her predecessor, Empress Dowager Xiao Jingcheng. Was a consort. Unleashing Empress Dowager, who was neither her husband's empress or not. It had to have been that empress. Maybe? No. No, there was another one. This thing's all screwed up. Hold on. It may have actually been, wait. The links are all screwed up here so badly. Wait. Puyi was the last. Yeah, but I don't think it was her. Because Zishi was from until 1908, so it would have been. This is what's weird. I'm on Wiki, and Wiki says that Empress Dowager Kangxi would have been the next one, but I don't think she was actually. She was Empress for. It doesn't look like very long. It looks like only a few days. It looks like she was. So it wouldn't have been her. Her successor, Empress Dowager. Wait, now I'm all screwed up. CN. Maybe? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's probably all made up. It's probably not. I mean, we know it's not a real one, but it's just interesting to try to find it. Broke up in 1911. Yeah, it's definitely was before that, though, active, because the book was published in 1906. God, I wish I could ask the author questions. Was he pleased with the gift? Asked the fans. Oh, he was delighted. I never shall forget that meeting. Of course, being up Tuan's sleeve, I could feel her shaking all over. I thought she had fainted from fright, so long did she remain prostrate at the foot of the Emperor's gorgeous throne. Just here a streak of light, very faint, came through a window of the shop, and gave warning that in 3 hours the men would be here to dust the showcases. And the Chinese fan said, I must hurry along if you wish to hear the end of my story. Please tell us of your daily life in the palace and how Tuan rose from a slave girl to empress. It is so wonderful and like a fairy tale. Are you sure it is all true? Every word of it, solemnly declared the Chinese fan. I will not have time to tell you of our daily life at the palace, but I will tell you how Tuan caught the fancy of the emperor at once. Her first favor asked was that she might be taught everything a boy might be taught, and since she had already learned to read and write, she quickly learned. Nothing was too deep for her. The religions of Confucius and of Buddha, statecraft, politics, the history of China were all mastered by her. The zenith of her power was reached when the empress died and Tuan was chosen to be the royal consort. Okay, this should give a clue. When the emperor died, she was proclaimed the Dowager Empress of China, and as she was and she has been the real ruler in all national affairs. She still used me on state occasions, but oh, she was very careful of me. I must say that Tuan's taste of power did not improve her nature. She grew hard, cold, shrewd, and cruel. Once I was in her hand when a man was brought into her presence, who had said something uncomplimentary about her. She waved me in the air and commanded, off with his head. And oh, my dears, his head was cut off right in her presence. I shuddered and hoped I would never again see a sight like that. The only tenderness that seemed left in her nature was her sentiment for me, but she used me very rarely during the last 10 years, for most of my time was passed in a rare old cabinet in the society of other valued possessions. Did she ever think of her parents and brother in all those years? Yes, indeed. She found out as soon as she could, and when the emperor had search made for them, the parents were dead. But the brother was alive. He had become a soldier. Tuan had been brought to court. Honors were heaped upon him, and he became a great general in the war with France. I am glad to tell you she remembered her family in the midst of her luxurious surroundings. Did she ever hear of Ah Lu? You will surely be glad to hear how that lovely woman once again came into the life of the empress. Did she remember Ah Lu too? Oh, yes. Ah Lu was looked for, but it was found that she had been converted to the Jesus doctrine and had been sent as a missionary to her own people to some faraway inland town, and no clue to her could be found then. But afterward, and here the Chinese fan had a little ray of sunlight from the window thrown right across her, warning her to hurry. Oh, did she find Ah Lu? And what honors did she heap upon her? Is she with her now? I will do my best to answer your questions about that dear woman. I know so much of her life, for I fell into her possession in a curious way, and have been owned by her for a year. Oh, we can hardly wait to hear, said the fans with keen interest. After Tuan left her, Ah Lu made up her mind to study the Jesus doctrine, and became a Christian, and be a missionary to her own people. She always had a hope that she would find Tuan some day, and convert her to the beautiful religion of love, and to the reality that the Christian's God was her own precious father, and not the faraway, misty being that Tuan thought him. Well, Ah Lu went to the mission school of her own native town, and in time married an American clergyman. Then they took charge of a large school for Chinese girls in Peking. It was Ah Lu who conceived the idea of presenting a copy of the translated Bible into Chinese to the Empress. The Bible was most artistically gotten up. It was bound in white vellum, hand-painted with the religious emblems. Over this was some exquisite carved ivory, through which the bright colors shone. Of course, the carving was of Ah Lu's, and the design was the very same she had used on the sticks of the fan made in that faraway garden under the cherry trees. Yeah, you can tell what culture is writing this is. Change the warlord. The author saw it doesn't sounds. It really does. The Jesus doctrine is kind of funny. Did she know the Empress was her old friend, Tuan? Oh, no, indeed. It was Ah Lu who wrote the letter begging Her Majesty to accept the gift from all the Christian Chinese women of Peking. I happened to be used by Her Majesty the day the Bible was presented, and when she saw Ah Lu's signature I felt her start, and when she examined the carving of the Bible she spread me open on her lap, and then called the young emperor's attention to the similarity of the carving. A strange thing happened that day. I noticed for the first time since I had been in her possession tears in her eyes, and with a voice that was full of emotion, she said to the court chamberlain, "I wish to have the lady who wrote this letter brought to my court tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Take this jade bracelet," and she drew one off her arm, "as a token of her empress's esteem and gratitude." Great was the excitement at the mission house the next morning when the empress's messengers arrived with the summons from Mrs. Ah Lu Maxton to appear before the empress. Ah Lu alone was calm. Her one idea was that she might have opportunity to tell the empress about the good news the Bible contains and get a promise from her to read it. The empress received Ah Lu. Civ game or something? Really? Yeah. The empress received Ah Lu in her private apartments with only 2 attendants present. Again, I was in the empress's hand, so I saw all that happened. Her Majesty knew Ah Lu at once, so little had she changed. The beautiful spiritual life she had always led, passed with little children, and in the service of her lord, had kept her face young, unlined, and lovely. When Ah Lu had made her reverences, the empress took her by the hand and said, "Look at this," showing her the fan, and then added, "Are not you my little friend Ah Lu who helped me make this fan? I am Tuen." Then in a pleading voice she said, "Don't you know me?" Ah Lu gave her a searching look, and then burst into tears and began kissing Tuen's hand. It was a most affecting scene. They talked for 2 hours. There was so much to explain, so much to be told. Tuen had heard about the mission house and the hospital they had started, and how much good it was already doing, and how much Ah Lu was accomplishing for the uplifting of the Chinese girls. When the audience was at an end, the empress said, "Ah Lu, you must come again. You bring me peace. You bring back the fragrance of those lovely childhood days in the cherry orchard." "Your Majesty," said Ah Lu, "I am sailing in 2 days for America with my husband. We are going over to tell about our work here and to try to raise money for our school and hospital." Then the empress exclaimed, "Am I to lose you just as I have found you, my heart's friend? Oh, but I need you, Ah Lu. Cannot your husband present the cause in America and leave you here with me at court until his return?" But Ah Lu felt she could fulfill God's will best away from court and her love to Tuen, that God had called her to work among his little ones, and kneeling before her dear girlhood's friend, her empress, most tenderly she told her this. Then Tuen said, "Rise, Ah Lu, beautiful worker for a spirit in whom I cannot believe." I'm sorry, that was so funny. The templates of the G stuff stacked. "Rise, Ah Lu, beautiful worker for a spirit in whom I cannot believe, but who must be all good, since he has made you accomplish only lovely things in all your life. Perceive that this master whom you serve is greater in your sight than your empress. Your orphanage shall be under my protection. I cannot consistently give money to enlarge or endow it, but I can bestow upon you any honor or gift that you may ask. What shall it be?" And Ah Lu, bending toward the empress, whispered, "Will you promise to read the Bible we have given you?" And then, getting very close, she said tremulously, "Oh, Tuen, will you give me our little fan?" I knew by the empress's smile that she was pleased with Ah Lu's request, for she was laughingly said, "During all my reign I have never had 2 such simple requests. But still, Ah Lu, in giving you my precious fan, I am giving you one of my most highly prized possessions. Take it, and only think of your empress as she was when she worked on that little fan with you." Oh, was not that nice and gracious of her? And what a wonderful evening there must have been at the mission. Indeed, it was an interesting evening, for I was looking into the upturned faces of 50 little Chinese girls as they listened to Ah Lu's story, and their eyes looked upon me almost with awe as something that had just been held by the empress. You can imagine what a change for me, who for nearly 50 years had been used to the gorgeousness of Chinese court life. "Which did you like the better?" asked the fans. I did not have a chance to decide, for in 2 days we started for America, and I must say that I have enjoyed my year in America better than all the years of my life. I have lived in the sweetest atmosphere of love and kindness. I have been talked about and written about, until I felt of as much importance as the Empress herself. Our history is filled with cheese. Our history is filled with cheese. The British Active Camel. That's too funny. The British Museum sponsored these messages. And oh, my dears, there is nothing that gives me so much happiness as to know you are being useful in the world and bringing happiness to hundreds of people. Why, how have you done that? You are only a fan, said the little new gauze fans, who wanted to be useful, but did not see how they would ever happen to get the chance. Well, I will tell you. Dr. and Mrs. Maxton, that is Alu's married name, you know, visited all the large cities in America. Whenever they told about their work in Peking and the great need of a hospital, especially for women and children, they'd always tell the audience my history, and afterward I was shown in my glass-covered box, and people always gave more when Alu told them about me and showed me to them. So you see, I felt that I was helping to raise money for their hospital. Oh, do tell us how you came to be in this exhibition. The men will be here soon. Well, Alu attended a great church convention in New York. People had heard of her and of me and of her wonderful work in Peking. It happened that one of Mr. Tiffany's agents attended the convention the same day that Alu was present, and as soon as the meeting was over, he asked to be presented to her and to have a nearer look at me. Then he told Alu about his fan exhibition and asked if he might call and hear more about her mission school. Where the Western world was fascinated with China, it was a big tourism thing. Yeah, it was. Let them eat cake. I want cake. Now I want cake. The next day, upon calling, he told Alu that he had been instructed by a great art collector in New York to ask whether she would sell me for the benefit of the hospital. If so, he was authorized to offer $1,000, for the art collector was princely giver to charities and wished to help her hospital work, and he had also promised the agent that if he secured me, I should be placed in this exhibition. At first, Alu declared it was impossible to part with me. Then her husband came in, and he said they would consider the offer until the next day. The husband urged her to sell me, because $1,000, with what they had collected, would build the hospital and make all needed improvements, and as all was to be used to the glory of God, their personal feelings should not interfere. Alu lay awake most of the night thinking it over, and this is what I heard her tell her husband the next day. Yes, I will sell the fan, for I feel that the money received for it will perpetuate the Empress's gift. I will put it all into the hospital, which is to heal the poor bodies of her subjects. She will be glad when she knows that indirectly she has been the cause of doing so much good. And so intense is my yearning that Tuan may be one to give her life to Christ and know the consolations of his love and care, and the sweetness of serving others for his sake, that I shall ever pray God to accept the hospital to be built and the work to be carried on within its walls, as my perpetual prayer for the conversion of Tuan, my empress and my girlhood's friend. There was only just time for a chorus of enthusiastic thanks to the Chinese fan for the interesting story of her life, before steps on the stairs warned them that the store was being opened for the day. So back on their stands they decorously placed themselves, and for a long time were very busy thinking over all the Chinese fan had said. And they were especially impressed with the fact that no one is ever too small or too humble to be of great use in the world and working for the good of others. The end. You're eating a biscuit, active. And that is the story of the romances of Fanland by Mignonette Violett Whelen, who is buried in Pelicanwood, Pennsylvania. I was going to look at something. Moral of the story, a fan can break wind and last forever. Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much. It was interesting. I did like that book. I need to continue to buy weird stuff when I am out and about. That's going to be my new goal. To just find, like, antique books that look intriguing and call to me. It sounds nice tapping too. To find these old books that look weird and are impossible to discover online. DT. Yeah, wait a minute, I just realized something. Hold up. I think one of the fans I showed a picture of was actually not that one. One of the fans that I researched, I think is actually on the cover of the book. Hold on. No, not Chinese. Victorian painted and I know I saw this one, this image. Let me pull up my downloaded pictures, because no, it's not one of those. It's such a distinct picture too. I was like, oh my god, it's got people dancing on the center. Let's see. Folding fan. Let's see if I can, how can I describe it? Folding, not folding. Folding fan Victorian painted. No. Victorian landscape. No, scene. Painted scene. God, why is it I could find it easily before and I know I looked at this image too. Okay, I'll just see if I can pull up the book. Wait, I have some older things still open. Hold up. I might be able to find it. Maybe not. I could have sworn I saw this fan. Maybe it's just so similar to others. Or maybe I've looked at it so much that I'm just hallucinating fans at this point. That's also very valid. If you go, I'll save this picture. Save as. This is the book. This is the cover of the book. Ooh, that's large. Large. See this right there? The fan that's on the left-hand side? That's the one I swear I've seen. I saw a picture of that on the internet. I know I have. But this is the book that is impossible to find. Therapy, so I find it's anthropomorphizing stuff. As long as there's been stuff we've been anthropomorphizing it. Yeah, it really is. I never, like, I'm trying to think if there's any book older than this that I could think of that did that with such a weird object. I don't know if I can think of any. Huh, I don't know. Chunky images versus small? Yes. Okay, so that stream went a little longer than I expected, but that's okay. I loved the book. So tomorrow I will be streaming. I'm actually going to, I have a book, Strange Book from the Science of Palmistry from 1902. Oh, cool. Tomorrow I will be streaming at 2 p.m. Central Time. It'll be on Twitch and YouTube. I'll be streaming with War Dud. We're going to be playing Satisfactory. Let me bring up, is Apple coming? Apple's not showing up. Apple is being a butthead. I was gonna bring out Apple for a minute, but she don't want to. Instead, that's all gonna do stuff. Hooray! We started playing Satisfactory back in. You enjoyed it, yay, Ike! Back in September, before I went on a very long hiatus that was unexpected. It just kept going and going and going. So we are going to play that tomorrow at 2. It'll be chaos. She's going to have to come rescue me because I get lost very easily and get distracted, as everyone has noticed in Atomfall. You have a good one as well. I hope to see you tomorrow. So everyone, thank you for coming in. Let's see, who are we going to raid today? I'm glad you enjoyed it. So Sunday we'll play, tomorrow, later today, however, we'll play Satisfactory with War Dud. And Crusader, I believe, might pop in. It was a great meeting you too, Josh. I hope you come in. We do a lot of old books too. Like, we've done all of the Oz books. We've done, we're reading Five Little Peppers and How They Grew on Wednesdays. And then Monday will be Atomfall again. Let's see, who is streaming? Will be nice. Oh, Jamesy is streaming. Let's go visit him. He's reading The Dragon in the Sea. All right, let's go visit him. All right, so if you're on YouTube, sadly, you will not be transferring over with me. But if you wanted to follow, go visit Jamesy on Twitch. His name is JAWMSIE. He's pretty awesome, dude. Let's go harass him a bit. We get the raid up. Jamesy. He pops in every now and then into this one. All right, see you all tomorrow. Bye, everybody.